Hello and welcome again to another short video courtesy of investingsuccess.ca. Today is the 15th of January 2025. In today's short little video, I want to take a look at soybeans, one of the largest agricultural crops, especially in the United States. Let's take a look at the astrology, let's take a look at the cycles, and let's take a look at some of the other aspects that drive the soybean market. If you search around on the internet, you will find a number of people that are marketing their seasonality. And you will find charts like the one that you see on the screen in front of you. And this is a chart of soybeans. And the person who created this chart has used 37 years of price data. And what he's trying to tell you in the chart is every year in January, February, every year you can expect a very explosive move in soybeans, which will take you through to the month of June. Now, does that mean that you just automatically buy soybeans every January and sit back and enjoy the ride? That's what the chart sort of indicates, doesn't it? Well, if that was true, then why would anybody bother getting up in the morning and going to work at a job? Why don't you just sit at home and buy soybeans in January and sell them in June and take off and go to the beach and put your feet up and drink beer? It's not that easy. These seasonality charts are, dare I say it, a little bit misleading because you've got 37 years of data. All it takes over the span of 37 years is a handful of years where you do have explosive price moves starting in that January time frame. You can have the balance of the data points be slightly down, sideways, maybe up just a touch, but this data on average can be easily swayed by, as I say, a handful of data points that are very, very strong. So look at it in that mathematical lens, if you will. Do not take any of these seasonality charts at face value. One of the things I like to look at in my writing is cycles. And on my Optima software package, there is a built-in algorithm called the periodogram. And that mathematical model will take a look at the data points on a chart, and it will parse the data points through the model, and the model will tell me what is the dominant cyclical behavior. So now in the case of soybeans, notice what I've got on the chart here. This is a weekly chart. The mathematical model is telling me that the dominant cycle on this weekly data is 389 price bars. So what I can do then is go back in time and I can find a significant low or a significant high, and I can start the overlay of the cycles. Now the red arcs I have on here, those are the 389 bar cycles. You can see that in 2018, soybeans made a low of in and around that $8 a bushel. Well, that was the end of one of these 389 bar cycles on the weekly chart. When is our next one coming at us? In about a year. In about a year's time. And what will soybeans be a year from now? I can't really tell you, but take a look at the chart. They are declining, declining, declining. I would not be surprised a year from now to see soybeans in that $8 or $9 a bushel price range again. Now, I also take a look at the dominant weekly cycle, and I sort of ask myself, can I divide that into sub portions of 3 or 4? And do any of those make sense? Well, in the case of the 389 bar cycle, yeah, I can divide that by 3, and that gives me about 129 bars. That's what we call the third harmonic of the dominant cycle. So I can then overlay the portions, the third harmonic, and you can see that, yeah, quite often, very often, those individual portions align to the beginning or the end of significant pivot points. And so what's interesting is in about a year from now, not only is the 389 bar cycle going to end, but so too will one of these individual portions. The other thing I want to draw your attention to, and I always look at this, what is the midpoint, the crest of that dominant cycle? Well, let's take a look at the current one that we're in here. There is roughly in early 2022, there's the midpoint. That's roughly the crest of that long cycle. What did the price of beans do at that cycle crest? Yeah, they made a significant high, didn't they? Let's back up and look at the previous cycle. And yeah, there's the midpoint there in late 2014. What did soybeans do? Going into that midpoint, they had a horrible, horrible price sell-off from like $15 a bushel all the way down to $9. And they actually kept going then past that midpoint. So on the cycles, I always look at the dominant cycle on the weekly chart. Can I break it into individual portions of 3 or 4, either a third harmonic or a fourth harmonic? And then what is the midpoint, the crest of that cycle? And quite often the price, as I say, will do something rather interesting at the crest of these long cycles. Then I take a look at a daily chart, and 389 bars on the weekly cycle. And if you consider that there's 5 days in the trading week, so 389 bars on the weekly chart is 1,945 bars on a daily chart. If I divide 1945 by 3, I get 648. So the third harmonic on the daily chart should be a cycle of about 648 bars. Well, lo and behold, if I ask the periodogram to parse the data, it comes back and it tells me that on the daily chart for soybeans, the dominant cycle is 617 bars. So 617, 648, not exactly the same. Here's what you need to understand about cycles. When a market, a stock, a commodity moves in cycles, these cycles are never pinpoint precise. There always is noise in the market, and that's because not everybody out there is buying and selling according to cycles. Some people are buying and selling according to seasonality. Some people are basing it on fundamentals, on weather. There always is noise. But in this case, 617, 648, that is within an acceptable deviation. So if the dominant cycle is 617, let's apply it. Let's go back to late 2011. There's a significant low. And if I apply 617 price bars, that takes me to 2014. There's the beginning of a major change in trend. Not so much earth-shattering news in late 2016. 2019, yeah. That cycle ended right at a very, very important low for soybeans. Let's move ahead one more. Takes us into 2021. There's a very significant pivot point on soybeans. Let's go ahead into 2024. Shortly after that cycle ended, soybeans collapsed in price. It went from about $12.50 a bushel down to $9.50. And so now we're in the throes of another one of these 617 bar cycles. And so all I do is I follow those cycles. Within the cycle, I'm always watching the slow stochastic or some other oscillator type trend indicator. And you can base then your trading decisions on where you are in the cycle and what the stochastic happens to be doing. Now, let's take this one step further. Is there any astrology connection? And if you read my financial astrology almanacs, you will know, especially if you've got the one for 2025, I go to great length to explain in this year's almanac when the various commodity exchanges actually started. And I take also a look at the day, the time when these various individual commodity futures started trading. In the case of soybeans, October 5th, 1936, that was a Monday. That is when the Chicago Board of Trade launched the first ever soybean futures contract. And I'm of the opinion, I don't know this for certain, but I am going to say that that first trade actually transpired at 7 a.m. on the floor in the soybeans pit in Chicago. So what's significant about October 5th, 1936? Well, you have got the sun at the ascendant. Now the ascendant is that point in the cosmos, that is the constellation that is rising on the eastern horizon early in the morning. And so on that date, the constellation that was visible was Libra. And as it turns out, at that date, October 5th, 36, Sun was at the ascendant. The midheaven is the other point I always look at. 15 degrees of Cancer. And if you've read my writings, my blogs, you will know that throughout not just American history, but global history, there is something about 14 of Cancer that is very, very important. And I'll actually tell you what it is. That is where the star Sirius is located, brightest star in the cosmos. Mankind has been fascinated, enamored with Sirius, the brightest star. And actually, if you were to go back in time exactly 1 minute to 6:59 a.m. on the 5th of October 36, that midheaven is exactly at 14 of Cancer. So when the authorities back in the day launched these contracts, they did not just pick a random date. They did not just pick a random time. It was all carefully contrived. The average man on the street had no concept of what this was all about. But people like W.D. Gann, yeah, they had it figured. They knew exactly when and why and where these contracts were being launched. Now take a look closer at the chart. You will see that there is a square pattern, and it's made up of Neptune. The other corner point is the moon. The other corner point is Saturn. The other corner point is Jupiter. Picking any other day of the week in October of 1936, you would not have had that square pattern. And so that square pattern actually sent out a message to those people who understood astrology. They simply then had to watch things like the moon passing these various corner points, these various planets. And that is what then led in 1937 to a person. I still don't know if she was real. There was a person by the name of Louise McWhirter who wrote a book, The McWhirter Theory of Stock Forecasting. And in her book, if she really was a real person, the book says, watch the moon. Watch the moon passing key points in that natal horoscope chart. Well, there you have it. October 5th, 36, soybeans with a very obvious square pattern in the bloody chart. It couldn't be made any more obvious. But not everybody in those days understood astrology. But to the likes of Gann, J.P. Morgan even, yeah, they followed it. So they knew there's 4 points. Watch when the moon passes those points. Watch when the moon passes the midheaven at 15 of Cancer. Watch when the moon passes the natal ascendant at 12 of Libra. Chances are at those times you're going to get a trend change and price is going to shift direction. Take advantage of it. So now we can go back to our price chart, and I'm just going to show you a few examples here. June of 2023, significant high on soybeans, $16 a bushel. From there, they fell apart. But what was it about that date in June of 2023 that caused a change? Well, guess what? The moon was passing the natal Jupiter point, one of those corner points in that square pattern in that natal horoscope chart of 1936. To the people who understood astrology, and there still are people who use it in trading, they'll never tell you about it, but they use it, they went short. They knew that soybeans had had a tremendous rally. It was time to take profits. It was time to go the other way. And they made money on the way down. And they used an astrology date, event, point to initiate their change of position. Price of soybeans fell into February, early March almost, of 2024. Then it looks like the short sellers covered their shorts. What was it about that point in February of 2024? The moon was passing the natal ascendant. Price rallied a little bit into May of 2024. Then it turned again and it went south. Why did it turn there? The moon was passing natal Jupiter, the Jupiter point in that square pattern in the 1936 chart. Soybeans bottomed out in August of 24. Why? Moon was passing natal Jupiter again. Finally, in December of 2024, like a month ago, I had a subscriber contact me, a subscriber of one of my newsletters, that is, and he said to me, is it time to buy soybeans? And I said, absolutely it is. They're coming down to test a previous low. So technically, we're going to make a double bottom. But you've got moon passing that natal ascendant point in the 1936 natal horoscope. And I have not followed back with him, but I'm assuming that he bought soybean futures. And if he did, he's done very well. So that's how astrology then can interact with some of this cyclical behavior. Now, I want to finish up by going back and taking another look at this seasonality chart. I said at the outset that mathematically, statistically, over 37 years, all you need is a handful of years where you did have explosive, powerful price movements, and you could then use that data, that powerful price data, and you could assemble a seasonality chart, and it would tell you that, hey, every February, price of beans is going to go up. Well, let's take a look and see over the past number of years if there have been any periods of time where there have been explosive moves in soybeans in that January-February time frame. Let's go back to February of 04, like 20 years ago. Jupiter was passing the natal ascendant point in that 1936 horoscope. Sun was passing the natal Jupiter point. Those are some pretty powerful moves. I mean, Jupiter is a slow-moving planet. That doesn't happen all of the time. So you had a very unique set of circumstances in February of 04. Yeah, you got an explosive move on soybeans. December of 2008, you had Sun 90 degrees square to the natal Sun in that 1936 horoscope. You had Mars square to that natal Sun. That's a rather unique event. Doesn't happen every day. That contributed to a powerful move in soybeans. January 2011, you had Sun passing the natal Jupiter point, and you had Saturn that had just passed the natal ascendant point in the 1936 chart. Again, a pair of very unique occurrences that don't happen every day. So there's three major events, and mathematically, statistically, yeah, those three big price moves are going to significantly influence the data as this guy puts together his seasonality chart. So I'm going to conclude with a very bold, cold message. When you're looking at these seasonality charts, be careful. Be careful. Pull out your magnifying glass. Go back and look at price charts of, in this case, soybeans. And ask yourself, do soybeans really and truly exhibit a big price move in late January every year? The answer is no. And you can see that for yourself by just looking back at old charts. So don't be fooled. Be careful. Put on your magnifying glass. Think of cycles. Go back and take a look at when the commodity future in question was started. What is the pattern that is evident in the first trade horoscope chart? And there will be one. And then just put on your WD Gann thinking cap. Think like Gann. Think like an astrologer. And it will suddenly start to make a lot of sense to you. And you will start to view the markets through a very different lens. Okay, I've taken up a lot of your time, so just quickly, the Astrology Almanac for 2025 is available on Amazon in paperback and ebook format. You can find me at investingsuccess.ca. Astrology Letter is offered by subscription. You can find me on Substack. You can take a look at my courses on Udemy. I always, even though I look intently at astrology, I always follow the trend as well. And I particularly look for times when the trend changes, whether it be a slow stochastic or some other oscillator. When you see a change of trend and you see a significant astrology event at the same time, look out. That's what I watch for. And as I find the time here over the next few months, I'm going to do a second edition update of my 2013 book. It's been 11 years. The Lost Science, and I'm going to update that and make that more meaningful and more readable for people. And that is it for me. So keep your eye on cycles, keep your eye on astrology. Don't be misled by people who tell you that there are seasonality trends that you can literally set your watch by. It's not true. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and thank you kindly for taking the time out of your busy day to watch this video. Take care.